Imagine watching your entire economy just, collapse overnight. Like, the industry that sustains your whole region is suddenly wiped out.
Right.
The streets of your city, which are usually filled with noise and commerce, go completely terrifyingly silent. You are absolutely desperate. You pull every political, financial, and spiritual lever you have access to.
You're just begging for a bailout at that point.
Exactly. You plead for relief. And yet, this ancient text, looking at this exact scenario, says that your desperation is the exact reason you are going to fail. Have you ever wondered why things just don't get better, even when you desperately want them to?
Well, it is a deeply uncomfortable reality to confront. I mean, we operate on this assumption that a high desire for relief naturally generates progress.
For sure.
We think that if we hurt enough and if we scramble hard enough, the universe or God is obligated to just fix our situation. But desire and progress are governed by two entirely different mechanisms.
Which is the exact mission of our deep dive today. We are exploring an ancient text, Isaiah chapter 16. On a surface read, it paints a haunting, visceral picture of a society enduring a total catastrophic collapse.
Yeah, it's pretty dark.
But when you decode the language, it's actually a masterclass on what human beings do after things fall apart. It exposes the underlying psychology of our panic, and it explains precisely why our most natural, urgent responses completely fail to actually save us.
What's fascinating here is that, well, historically, readers tend to approach this specific chapter merely as a poetic story of judgment and mourning. It is incredibly easy to get lost in the sheer tragedy of the narrative.
It's very emotional.
Right. But beneath the surface poetry, it serves as a profound diagnostic tool. It looks at how a society, or even an individual, can be entirely broken down by circumstances, yet completely refuse to implement the structural changes required for true recovery.
So, to understand the failure of their recovery, we really have to grasp the sheer scale of the devastation the text is describing. I mean, it doesn't hold back on the imagery at all.
Not even a little.
It talks about the daughters of Moab at the fords of Arnon, describing them as a wandering bird cast out of the nest. Now, Moab was an ancient kingdom situated just east of the Dead Sea. But when the text mentions the fords of Arnon, what exactly are we visualizing here?
You have to picture a massive refugee crisis bottlenecked at a river crossing. The Arnon River was a major geographical boundary, like a deep gorge.
Okay.
When the text calls the citizens of Moab daughters of Moab and compares them to a bird cast out of its nest, it's describing the total loss of infrastructure. A bird cast out of a nest isn't just lost, it is entirely devoid of its natural defenses.
The structure that kept it safe is just gone.
Exactly. So you have a highly vulnerable population frantically fluttering around a river border, trying to escape an invading force with nowhere safe to land.
But the vulnerability isn't just physical, though, right? Because the text goes into meticulous detail about the total economic annihilation of the region, too.
Yeah, the financial ruin is huge here.
It specifically mourns the fields of Heshbon and the vines of Sibmah. It says the lords of the heathen have broken down the principal plants, scattering them as far as Jazer and over the sea.
That geographical context is crucial because, well, Heshbon and Sibmah weren't just rural farmland. In the ancient Near East, this region was essentially the Napa Valley of their world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, their vineyards produced luxury exports. This was the economic engine of their entire civilization. When the lords of the heathen, which refers to the aggressive invading empires of the time like Assyria, when they trampled those vines all the way to Jazer on their northern border, they weren't just burning crops.
They were dismantling Moab's GDP.
Precisely. They were destroying the region's primary source of wealth and stability.
And the text captures the psychological weight of that loss perfectly. It describes this eerie, heavy silence settling over the land, like gladness is taken away from the plentiful fields.
Yeah, the silence is deafening.
There is no singing or shouting in the vineyards. The treaders are treading no wine in their presses. It's the ancient equivalent of walking through the financial district of a major modern city at noon on a Tuesday and finding it entirely abandoned. The music of their society has just stopped.
Which serves as the ultimate indicator of a collapsed civilization, really. I mean, when the harvest fails, survival instinct overrides everything else. You lose art, you lose celebration, you lose the communal activities that make a group of people feel alive.
The whole infrastructure of joy just vanishes.
Right.
The narrator of the text actually experiences a physical reaction to witnessing this. They say their bowels shall sound like a harp for Moab and their inward parts for Kirhirs, I know that phrasing sounds bizarre to our modern ears, but they're describing a very real, very visceral reaction.
They're describing severe stomach-churning anxiety. Kirhirs, or Kir-Hareseth, was one of Moab's premier, heavily fortified brick cities.
Right, a major stronghold.
So seeing a seemingly impenetrable fortress fall, seeing the economy burn, it induces a physiological trauma response. It's that deep, sickening knot in your gut when you realize everything you relied on is gone.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
And when human beings hit that level of physiological panic, their immediate instinct is to seek urgent, immediate relief. They just want the pain to stop. But the text reveals the fatal flaw in how they go about securing that relief.
Okay, let's look at exactly how they try to fix it, because their world is shattered and they go into a frenzy of activity. The text says they send a lamb from Selah to the wilderness, all the way to the mount of the daughter of Zion.
They are looking for a lifeline.
They are begging for someone to make thy shadow as the night in the midst of the noonday. They are essentially begging for a covert, a hiding place, to shield their outcasts from the spoiler and the extortioner.
To decode that movement a bit, Selah is an ancient stronghold, often associated with Petra in Edomite territory south of Moab. And the Mount of the Daughter of Zion is Jerusalem, the capital of the neighboring kingdom of Judah. Sending a lamb in this context isn't like a cute religious sacrifice. In a pastoral economy, livestock is currency.
Oh, so Moab is sending their primary wealth across a dangerous wilderness to the Judean king.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if I'm reading this as a historical, political thriller, Moab is actually doing exactly what a nation in crisis should do.
It seems perfectly logical.
Right. They're being invaded by a massive empire, so they gather their remaining treasury, send a diplomatic convoy to the neighboring superpower in Jerusalem, and ask to buy into their military alliance. They're paying protection money for a shadow to hide under.
Yeah, they want a shield.
So why does the text frame this frantic diplomatic scrambling as a failure? Why does it explicitly say later that they shall not prevail? To me, it feels like frantically bailing water out of a sinking rowboat without ever pausing to plug the hole in the hole.
That is the perfect analogy because you have to separate activity from actual effectiveness. Moab is attempting to solve a deep structural and moral collapse with a superficial political bribe.
Just a quick fix.
Right. They're trying to buy a quick fix to avoid dealing with the root cause of their devastation. They want the heat of the invading armies, the noonday sun, to magically cool into the shade of night purely because they paid a tribute.
But that doesn't actually solve anything.
No, the core theme here is that desperation does not equal transformation. The people are wearying themselves on the high place and at their sanctuary, but the text explicitly says they shall not prevail.
Because they haven't changed the inputs.
Exactly. They want relief, but they haven't changed the inputs that caused the problem. You can't confuse urgency with real progress.
So it's like finding out the foundation of your house is actively sinking into the earth, and your response is to frantically put a fresh coat of premium paint on the cracking drywall. Yep. The paint might make the room look nice for an afternoon, and you're sweating, working incredibly hard to apply it, but it completely ignores the fact that you are about to lose the entire house.
That is exactly what Moab is doing. They are putting diplomatic paint on a crumbling foundation. Later in the text, it notes they even weary themselves on the high place and go to their sanctuary to pray.
So they pull the spiritual lever too.
Yeah, but the text insists it won't work. You cannot fix outcomes without fixing inputs. They wanted the shadow and the safety, but they absolutely refused to adjust the underlying behavior that cost them their safety to begin with.
Well, if the foundation is visibly cracking and the house is sinking, why wouldn't you just fix the foundation? Like, why waste all that energy painting the drywall?
People do it all the time.
The text doesn't leave us guessing here either. It points to a very specific, deeply uncomfortable human flaw. It says, "We have heard of the pride of Moab. He is very proud, even of his haughtiness and his pride and his wrath. But his lies shall not be so."
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this explains the paralysis of recovery in almost every human endeavor.
How so?
Well, the very mindset that caused the issue in the first place, the pride, the arrogance, the haughtiness, it remains completely intact even while their society is broken down.
Oh, yeah.
Pride blocks recovery because pride categorically refuses to admit that the foundational structure was wrong to begin with. People can be completely broken down and still be too proud to change.
That concept is genuinely staggering. You can be a completely destitute refugee, wandering like a bird kicked out of a nest at the river Arnon. You can be starving because the vines of Sibma are destroyed.
Yep.
And you can still be too proud to admit that your societal foundation was flawed.
Because changing the foundation requires an admission of guilt, It requires profound humility. You have to look at your life or your society and say, the way I built this was fundamentally incorrect.
And people hate doing that.
For many people, the psychological pain of a bruised ego is somehow more terrifying than the physical pain of a collapsed life. So they cling to their pride. They keep trying to bribe their way out of consequences, which just keeps them trapped in that cycle of desperation.
They definitely try to mask that stubborn pride with a massive display of emotion, though.
Oh, absolutely.
The text observes that there's massive weeping for the foundations of Kir Hareseth and the summer fruits. There is so much grief happening here. You would naturally assume that all those tears indicate a readiness to change.
We make that assumption all the time, don't we? But emotional reactions do not replace strategic thinking. We constantly fall into the trap of believing that because we feel incredibly strong negative emotions about a loss, we are inherently acting wisely to fix it.
Like our tears are somehow progress.
Right. Loss certainly creates an opportunity for clarity. When the summer fruits are stripped away, you can finally see the cracks in the foundation. But weeping over the cracks doesn't repair the concrete. Feeling strongly doesn't guarantee acting wisely.
So if frantic effort doesn't work, and if emotional grief doesn't work, what does the text offer as the actual solution? How do you rebuild a collapsed society?
The text offers a brilliant, jarring contrast right in the middle of all this chaos. Amidst Moab's frantic scrambling, the text describes a different kind of throne. One established in mercy, sitting in truth in the tabernacle of David, judging and seeking judgment and hasting righteousness.
So what does this all mean? We go from wandering refugees and ruined vineyards to this highly specific description of a throne established in David's tent.
It's a huge pivot.
Yeah. How does that translate to a practical blueprint for stability and recovery?
It demonstrates that stability requires the right kind of structure, not just motivation. Notice the specific words being prioritized here. Mercy, truth, judging, righteousness. These are foundational concepts.
Yeah, I see.
The text is arguing that recovery isn't tied to who has the most money or the best military alliances. Recovery is tied to justice, to fairness, and to consistency. Temporary fixes and surface-level adjustments only create long-term frustration. You have to solve the actual problem, not just treat the symptoms.
Which is exactly what sending that lamb was, just symptom management.
Exactly. Sending a lamb to buy a shadow at noonday is a symptom treatment. It's temporary. If you want to stop the collapse, you have to rebuild on absolute truth, even when that truth demands that you abandon your pride.
Here's where it gets really interesting for us. We've decoded the ancient geopolitical crisis. But how does this historical blueprint fundamentally change how you operate today, especially in your spiritual life?
Well, that is the ultimate enduring application of Isaiah 16. We might not be ancient farmers mourning the loss of a vineyard in Sibma, but every single person listening to this will experience a personal collapse.
Right, like a career failure or a broken relationship, maybe a financial disaster.
Exactly. And how we approach God in the middle of those collapses often mirrors exactly how Moab approached the king of Judah.
We treat God like a vending machine for immediate relief. When things fall apart, we don't naturally seek structural change. We pray these panicked, desperate prayers, basically offering God our modern version of a lamb.
Yep, the bargaining phase.
We say, God, if you just fix my bank account, if you just make this shadow come right now and hide me from the consequences of my actions, I promise I'll go to church more. We want the pain to end, but we completely resist submitting to his structure.
And the text provides a stark warning about that approach. It teaches us that God values profound structural alignment over panicked surface-level prayers. When things fall apart, we want that vending machine fix.
But God doesn't work like that.
No. He wants to establish a throne of mercy and truth in our lives. Trusting God means dropping our pride, submitting to his structure, and recognizing that he wants to fix the root of our problems, not just hand us a Band-Aid.
That brings up the final prophecy in the text, which honestly might be the hardest part to swallow.
The timeline.
Right, the timeline of true change. It says, within 3 years, as the years of a hireling, and the glory of Moab shall be contemned, and the remnant shall be very small and feeble.
Yeah.
3 years. Just to clarify the jargon here, what exactly are the years of a hireling?
A hireling is an ancient contract worker or a day laborer. When you are working a grueling contract job, You count the exact days until your term is up. You don't lose track of time.
Oh, I see.
By saying, as the years of a hireling, the text is stating that this 3-year timeline of dismantling Moab's glory is precise, exact, and inescapable. It won't be cut short.
Wait, really? 3 full years?
Hmm.
If we're applying this to how God operates with us today, that sounds incredibly harsh. If God is entirely capable of establishing a throne of mercy and offering immediate relief, why would he force someone to sit in the ruins of their collapsed life for 3 years?
Why does it take so long?
Ex-
Well, this raises an important question about the nature of true transformation. It takes time because the dismantling of deep-seated human pride is not an overnight event. God's transformation in our lives isn't a magic trick where he just snaps his fingers and we are suddenly humble.
Right. It's a process.
It is a slow, structural rebuild. Understanding this actually strengthens our trust in God because it validates that when he doesn't immediately rescue us, he hasn't abandoned us. He is simply working on long-term sustainable growth rather than enabling fake short-term progress.
So the delay isn't a punishment, it's part of the cure. He is letting the old prideful structures be completely stripped down so that something grounded in actual truth can be built in its place.
Which means we cannot afford to waste our difficult experiences. Hard seasons are meant to show us exactly what needs to change.
They are diagnostic.
Yes. When your personal summer fruits fail, when the career or the status you relied on for joy entirely vanishes, it is agonizing. But it reveals what you are actually trusting in. It shows you where the cracks in your foundation are.
Well, we have covered so much ground today. We started with this terrifying picture of total societal collapse and wandering outcasts. We discovered that panic and pride are the ultimate roadblocks to recovery.
They really are.
And we learned that trusting God means embracing deep structural transformation, rather than just begging for temporary release. Throwing energy at a problem without changing your underlying structure is basically just painting drywall in a sinking house.
And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, because setbacks are just information in disguise. When your summer fruits fail, it's the ultimate opportunity to rebuild on a foundation of actual truth.
It's an invitation to grow.
Right. But what if your life is highly successful right now, but your foundation is built entirely on the pride of Moab? Are your current successes actually just a collapse waiting to happen because they aren't rooted in truth and righteousness?
Wow. That completely changes how you look at your own stability. You have the blueprint for what true recovery requires now. The question is, how will you apply this information in your life?